Eka melkein. Kyllä.
Hello, everybody. Very evening for me. So I guess they're moving chairs around somewhere in my virtual screen there. But all of you, I assume, are sat with a coffee or doing your bits. And this slogan, "Get the new tomorrow." Well, I'm going to make an argument that if you're trying to get the new tomorrow, you're already too late, because it's already here, and people are already digging up the road underneath your feet before you know it. And the COVID pandemic, disorganization, craziness, whatever you want to call it, has accelerated so many trends which were already evident in our business life, our daily life, all kinds of things like that. And some of them will continue and some of them will not. They will wither away or take their proper place in goods and services that can get provided to people. For example, always having to go out with a couple of spare masks. It would be nice in 4 or 5 years if we found all those masks in our drawer and went, oh my God, whatever was I thinking? Why do we have to wear one of these? So those are things that we'll forget about. But things we won't forget about are getting things delivered by little boxes and not always going to the shops. But then again, going to the shops may become something absolutely delightful after all the various lockdowns and restrictions and curfews and everything else come clear. And the reason, talking about marketing in particular, the reason this is important is I've noticed, for example, on the underground, the metro in London, the poems on the underground, which are, instead of like advertising, they have a poem. And it was really nice. And it started a few years ago, and it's been rolled out everywhere in the world. Well, now there are actually more poems on the London Metro than there are advertisements, because nobody knows what to advertise and nobody knows how to use that particular space. So it's fascinating the way things are getting repurposed. But they're getting repurposed not by money, they're getting repurposed by people. We've spent vast amounts of money, huge amounts of money, trying to keep people in jobs that they're not actually doing right now till the end of October. This is in the UK and probably in various other places around the world. All the time acknowledging that eventually all those people are just going to get put out of a job. A lot of them. And if you were to look at Get the New Tomorrow, and we were to look at the way governments are reacting, you would have to say that marketing people are way ahead of them in terms of the consequences of their actions, because governments have been so reactive to everything. They're already behind the curve. As marketing people, obviously you like to present things to people and give them choices. I would argue that the best marketing is stuff that enables people to have choices and makes their lives better. Now, there's all kinds of TV marketing you can see, whereby you can buy this wonderful thing. Oh, and here's another one, and here's another one. And yes, you'll get 5 for free. That kind of stuff. And that's the kind of marketing that I don't like, because I don't think it does make people's lives better. Because when the stuff arrives, 9 times out of 10, it's such poor quality and you never use it, and so on and so forth. It's stuff you don't need. But where marketing really comes into its own is when it markets a need that people actually didn't know they had. And that's really quite sophisticated. And it is entirely possible to do that kind of stuff. But to do it, you need to look beyond just your marketing. You need to look at the world with fresh eyes, with creative eyes, dare I say it. And there are so many people, so many creative people, sadly, going to be out of a job. They're out of a job at the moment, but they're definitely going to be out of a job by the time we get to what is going to be a very tough Christmas. But those people are an unbelievable resource, which is being wasted and squandered at the moment by governments who don't understand how creative people work. They also don't understand how creative people do what they do because they can't measure it in their stupid, useless government metrics, which turn out to be entirely wrong, like trying to use an Excel spreadsheet to run a track and trace system, which is so laughable, except it's not laughable because these are the idiots that are, running, allegedly, the response to this pandemic. It would be much better to put some marketing people in there, quite frankly, and take a really sensible, proactive look at what's going on. But the key thing here is it's not about money. This is not getting the new tomorrow is not about money. It's not about things. It's not even necessarily about facilities. It's about people, because people are the destination for everything that we do. In the end, we don't do things ultimately for anybody else other than people. And there are a few exceptions to that. Most of them probably belong in jail. But the speculators, the Goldman Sachs people, the manipulators, they don't do things for people. But I'm not talking, hopefully, to those kind of people out there at the moment. We're talking to people who want to help people, who want to make their lives better. And to use a strapline that I always have used for a long time, to turn customers into fans, to turn customers into fans of whatever the product is. And a fan is somebody with whom you have a relationship, albeit it might be at arm's length, albeit it might be through your music or your lyrics or your books or your films or your product, your physical product that people love so much. There's a vacuum cleaner called a Dyson, right? Now, vacuum cleaners in the UK used to be collectively known as a Hoover, because Hoover, I guess, was the first big vacuum cleaner manufacturer to make it. So generically, you went out to buy a Hoover. Well, what a triumph in marketing that somebody's come up with a physical product that people like so much that they now go out to buy a Dyson or a Hoover. So it's actually supplanted that in a lexicon, a language. So that's a real triumph of an actual physical device which creates an emotional response in people. And if there is anything that you need to concentrate on in A New Tomorrow, it's doing something that gets an emotional response from people. So how do you do that? Well, you have to be authentic. You have to have integrity. You have to mean it. And this is probably going to be difficult for some people, not so difficult for other people who may have been doing it for a while. Let me give you an example. We developed a beer in Iron Maiden. It's done, quite well. We've sold we're just about coming up to 30 million pints of it. It started out life as an idea that was introduced to us by a marketing person. And the marketing person turned up and said, I've got this great idea. Here's my pitch in 5 minutes. You can make some money if you do an Iron Maiden red wine. Ta-da! Iron Maiden red wine. Now, I drink the stuff. I like it. I love a nice glass of red wine with with some evening meal, but it's not really Iron Maiden, It's like if you had an Iron Maiden Dyson. Why would we have an Iron Maiden Dyson, an Iron Maiden barbecue, an Iron Maiden pinball table? Now you're talking. I've got one. But the idea that we should do an Iron Maiden red wine, but that provoked a bit of chain of thoughts with us. We said, well, hang on. We're an English band. We're a little bit traditional. What about an Iron Maiden beer? And the marketing guy's eyes lit up and he went, oh, yes, fantastic. Yes, an Iron Maiden beer. That's great. I'll get right on it. Let's get to designing the label and I'll go and find somebody else's beer and we'll stick your label on it. And you can make a few bucks on that. And we said, whoa, stop right there. No. The whole idea is not with us that we go and do something just to make a few bucks. If we do something, it's got to be something real, authentic. It's got to have integrity. So we should actually design our own beer, flavor, the flavor, the concept of it, and the label, and the marketing. But the product has to exist freestanding, not as I only buy this product because I am an Iron Maiden fan. Yeah, sure, there'll be a curiosity uptake in the beginning, but we want to establish it as a credible brand in its own right. So that's effectively what we did. We took a chance, and we said, well, how do we do this? We've never created a beer before. Let's find a brewery and let's ask the master brewer, and we have opinions, and let's go ahead and do it. And I think that proactive way of doing things, that thinking out of the box, has got to be something that, a new world of marketing starts to embrace. So it's not just marketing. It's not just the human resources department, the marketing department, the this department, the that department, everybody living in their own little silo. Not a bubble. You can talk to people in a bubble, but a silo is somewhere where you live in your own little world and you're closeted away, and you do your stuff and you keep your secrets. So the world is now opening up. Nobody should be afraid because there are very few secrets left in the world. There are a few closely guarded, but increasingly it's going to be really hard to keep a secret because new forms of computing, quantum computing, all that kind of stuff are coming and are going to change our lives in yet more ways. But the one thing that stays eternal in all of this is people. In adversity, people get together and they do extraordinary things. Imagine a guy who decided to go and do a marathon in his backyard in lockdown, seized the imagination of everybody, went crazy and viral. We've got a guy, Captain Tom, who is nearly 100 years old, and he decided to just go for a seriously long walk to try and raise money for charity. And it seized the imagination. People doing authentic, incredible things, imaginative things. And the world is full of imaginative people right now who've got nowhere to go. A lot of bands, young bands, are actually being more creative now because, hey, when COVID didn't happen, they weren't making any money. They were just doing it for fun, basically, and hoping. Well, now nobody's making any money, but actually they were never making any money in the first place. They've got nothing to lose, everything to gain. So they're going for it, which is brilliant. So in adversity, people step up to the plate. And it's about people, not about money. And people, of course, will create processes because there are processes in the end. You don't just make this stuff up and throw it against the wall and it sticks. But people make those processes, you know? So the process, the people, and of course, still, even in this internet world, even in this world where we would much rather I was in the room with you right now than talking onto a computer screen, even in this world, then you still have to work hard. And that's the third, you know, people, yeah, you need the people and the ideas. Process, yeah, you need some processes to make sure that your ideas can be explained and they get through the gates. But perspiration, you've got to work hard and you've got to sweat in this new tomorrow. Probably harder than you ever have done before, and probably for less money, but quite possibly for more satisfaction, knowing that you're getting the job done, knowing that you're surviving, and knowing that you're making people's lives better because of what you do. And I aspire to be part of that. I'm not a marketing guy, although I have a foot in marketing. So, you know, when we decided to come up with the Ed Force One Captain's Watch, somebody said, "What's the price point?" I went, £666, of course, you know. And even the design of it, you know, I mean, I've never made a watch before, but of course, I made a watchmaker, and I thought, you know what, this is really cool. Maybe we could make a watch. And yeah, we've sold 666 of them over very slowly, drip fed, because we don't want to sell watches to people that are being almost forced into buying the watch. Oh, I have to buy that watch, otherwise I'm not an Iron Maiden fan. No, you buy the watch because you're interested in watches and it's a cool watch. And this is our perspective on things. We don't do anything unless it fulfills those two criteria. It's authentic and it has integrity. And the third one, of course, is it's a great product. So ultimately, it's all about people. People are what drives this. You can throw money at something, as governments are doing right now, and actually it won't change a thing. People are what change things, and people change things for people. That is, I hope, the new tomorrow. And that is what we can learn from having been locked up in our bedrooms and with our partners and not being allowed to see people. There's been a shift in the way that people think about life. Will it last? Well, yeah, I actually think it will. It won't be a big shift in the end, but I think that where we're at the moment, the end of all this, when it all finally clears out, people will be left with the idea that people are really important. And that's a good thing. And that's something we need to bring into every aspect, not just of our marketing, but also our lives. Thank you very much. And I'll hand it over to Eddie. There you go.
Hello, Bruce, or is it Eddie?
Cheap gimmick, but it worked, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Thank you so much for inspiring speech you had. I have tons of questions from the audience, and I'm trying to pick up few one here. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
This is, I think, interesting. How can we teach companies to engage with our customers as well as you do with your fans?
Oh, wow. Okay. I go out and I do well, when the world was doing corporate speeches in person and things like that, I do a lot of speeches in which people want to know exactly that. So they love that my line, and they suddenly go, "That's great! How do we do that?" And it's not um, it's not simple, but it's easy. All you have to do is change the way people talk to each other and change the motivation of the questions they ask. There you go. Simple,
Okay.
but it's
Yep.
not easy because what happens is there's resistance in any organization to opening up to change because people, rightly or wrongly, some more than others, perceive it as a threat. And what's important when you try and change an organization, change their attitude to the external world, what's important is that you do that in a fair way, so people don't feel threatened. So that people who might not be extrovert like me, I'm obviously fairly extrovert, but consequently, if I'm in a meeting, oh, excuse me, yeah, excuse me, yeah, and there'll be somebody in the corner that'll be a very quiet, introverted person that may have the answer to everything in the room, and he feels he can't speak because he's overwhelmed by all these extroverts. And dare I say it, marketing people tend to be extroverts, so you can't get a word in edgeways, and you need to calm things down rather than changing things by talking at people. Change things by listening to people. And that's something that we don't do very well.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. This is interesting as well. Music has shifted into an individual songs rather than albums. Do you see any analog to this consumer behavior in general?
Well, that's interesting because, like most things, things in music are transient. So yes, it's like that now. It may change in the future. One of the factors driving that, of course, is streaming. So because music is, well, the analogy I make is, look, the music is for free, but the T-shirt will cost you $100. So all that's happened is that bit like one of those like hourglasses that you turn over, the sand has gone from one end of it to the other end of it, but it's still the same hourglass. It still does the same thing. So nobody makes that much money on making recorded product anymore, and certainly not in the same way as they used to. But live work, of course, has become incredibly important, and the merchandising and all the rest of it. But it's still fundamentally the same because what you're purchasing when you buy recorded product or when you go to buy a ticket, what you're purchasing is a relationship with that artist. And you have to believe in it. There's a reason people wear our T-shirts, and it's not just because they're good quality T-shirts. It's because it's a statement about what they believe in. Yeah, this is me. This is Maiden. This is part of who I am. We're really proud that we can do that, and people want to represent us as part of the fabric of their being. That's incredible. Now, we're slightly different because we still make albums. And people can choose to take the individual songs, or they can choose to take the whole album. It just so happens that our audience, which is a niche, we are a niche band. We're a very, very big niche. But God forbid we should ever be, quote unquote, mainstream. We don't want to be mainstream. Our fans are not mainstream. They are all individuals. And that's why they come to us because we're a little bit quirky. We're not the same as anybody else. So we have a little bit of difference there that I think people like the idea of being taken on a journey on an album, on an Iron Maiden album. They would be disappointed if we just released individual songs. So that's been driven to an extent by the streaming, simply by the mechanism of things. At the same time, marketing-wise, it's really fascinating the upsurge in vinyl sales. Why is that? Is it because everybody is suddenly playing records at home? No, it's because there's a fabulous nostalgia for something physical, which is artistic, which is an actual artifact, which you can hold, it's real. And you can put it on your wall, or you can play the records because they do sound really, really good on vinyl. So there's a yearning as human beings for some physical evidence. That's why we are together and not just disembodied egos in space,
All right. Thank you, Bruce. I hope to see you in the near future in Finland in a concert and be safe,
yes,
man.
Please.
Pardon me?
Sorry?
No. There's something with the line, but stay safe. Take it easy. Thank you so much.
And you too. Thank you very much. Live long and prosper, as Mr. Spock would say.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Karri, tuus lavalle munkaan vielä.